Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. And if you'd like to apply to be a guest, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Deepak Mehta on the line, and he's Senior Vice President over at Fincuro. Deepak, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, man. So glad to have you on the line today. And we got a lot to cover. We'll talk about Fincuro. We'll definitely get into digital transformation and some of the things that you're working on. But just to get us started, Deepak, so we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. Deepak, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters to me is really transforming organizations to make them the best they can be and to offer the best experience they can to their customers.
That's awesome. Love bringing on mission-based businesses. And maybe just let's begin with, tell us a little bit more about Fincuro.
So Fincuro is in the business of digital transformation, of transforming financial services organizations to be a lot more nimble, responsive, to keep up with the times, so to speak. And that's essentially what we do by offering a digital experience platform, by offering core banking solutions. So we offer everything that a financial services organization would need in order to be successful in today's environment and in tomorrow's.
When you say transformation, specifically to what you're doing at Fincuro, let's go a little bit deeper than that, because I feel like we hear that word thrown around a lot, but especially in the financial sector, there is some true transformation, just like healthcare. That's another sector where there's some real possibilities for change based off of this transformation renaissance, if you will. So tell us a little bit more about what you mean by transformation.
So transformation, in my view, is the process of fundamentally changing the way an organization works to focus on maximizing customer lifetime value. And how do you do that? You do that by offering the best customer experience. Because when you do the right thing by your customers, they will do the right thing by you and they will stay with you. Otherwise, they'll go. There's no loyalty that's going to stay unless you provide the basis for that loyalty, right? So that's what we're trying to do to help companies transform themselves to focus all of their efforts on their customers to give them the best experience, right? And I'm working in the financial services industry, and there's a really great example that I saw which really exemplifies this whole concept of digital transformation, right? So the ING, which is the Dutch banking group, this is in the mid-2010s, right? About 5-6 years ago, they realized they had a serious problem. Opening an account, you want to open a checking account or a savings account, that used to take them 20 days. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd.
People that are listening to this right now are like, wait a minute, 20 days to open an account? What? Like, that's a long, nowadays, that's tough.
It is very tough. It is very tough. And they totally changed themselves. They totally changed themselves to become, from hierarchical to agile. They improved their time to market by 37%, right? They had to change their whole application development process. And what they managed to do is staggering. So it was 20 days and 3 branch visits, and they brought it down to 5 minutes.
Wow.
my friend, is digital transformation. That
Man,
is it, right?
that's exciting. That is exciting. And so, I mean, I'm not even gonna, I mean, try to put a number on how much that saves in terms of just regular resources, but let alone like the brand experience and everything that you're mentioning. Like the customer experience is completely different. I'm curious. So you mentioned ING. So I mean, that's a big company. Does FinCuro does it work with only enterprise level? Does it work with mid-sized financial firms also? Like, give me a feel for the types of clients that normally get the most value out of FinCuro.
You said it perfectly. We work for mid-size financial services organizations, and actually, we like to focus on credit unions, community banks that also have a mission, right? Their mission is to be part of that community, to provide services to the community, right? So their focus is less on the profit generating side and more on the community side. So that's what we really enjoy.
Man, what a great product market fit, not just from the standpoint of being mission-based, but it just makes sense, especially a lot of these great credit unions and these great relationships that sometimes they don't, or smaller even regional banks, sometimes they may be the better player, but maybe a process just doesn't feel quite as good for a new client. And, you know, when you're introduced in the market and stuff, the process doesn't feel right, or it feels a little bit different. Maybe they lose out on the business to someone else when they might even been the best fit. It's just not easy, especially with like legacy systems or things like that. Like I've interviewed, by the way, quite a few executives from different credit unions, all the way from like Tucson Federal Credit Union. Shout out to all of them out there. I know they listen to us, and I love a bunch of different credit unions. But I noticed that when you say heart-centered and like that mission focus and really caring about the community, they do. Like I know because we've talked to a lot of them on this show. But I do know that some of them that maybe are a little bit, I don't know if I should use the word scared, but hesitant, like on some of these transformational things because you know the process of doing it can be intimidating. What would be like and when I use the word typical, I know every relationship is going to be different. I get that, but we do know that like over time, working with many of your market, certain themes tend to arise. So, what does a typical like transformation approach look like?
So, a typical transformation, and you know, before that, I want to offer up one quote which I really like. And this was an observation made by a gentleman called George Westerman, who's at the MIT Sloan Institute in Digital Economy. And he said, when digital transformation is done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But when done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar, right? And that's what you want to do. So you really want to ensure that you are looking at the totality of the experience and approaching it from that perspective. You don't do it piecemeal, right? It's not a attend to one part of the organization and the rest will be okay. No, that just doesn't work. You have to look at it as a whole, the same way ING did, right? They looked at it, took a holistic view of it, and that's how they were able to succeed. So you know, if I had to elaborate a little bit on that, what I would say is, you look at these 5 factors. You look at process, right? Because processes really drive the organization, right? You look at data. You know, 10, 15 years ago, people really didn't talk a whole lot about data, but today everything is about data, right? You're talking about your data. Google's taking a look at it. Facebook taking a look at it. Everyone, right? There are mountains and mountains of data, literally, that are available today for an organization to understand what is happening in its environment, to understand how its customers are behaving, and how the environment is behaving, right? So that is the second factor that is important. Technology is important because that's the medium that you're using to deliver your services to people, right? It's digital today. It's no longer, you know, you pick up the phone and go through voicemail and stay on the line for hours or something like that. It's all digital. It's happening here and now. The fourth one, extremely important, is people, right? Without people, if you can't bring your people along with you, the transformation doesn't happen, right? And the fifth thing, this is something that traditionally has not been very obviously focused on, is the element of time, right? As in the first example we talked about with ING Bank, 20 days to 5 minutes, right? Let me give you another example of where time was extremely important. Last year, we've had this pandemic, right? Well, it's still continuing. And Pfizer came up with a vaccine in what, 8 months, 9 months? And, how were they able to do it, right? Their thing was they needed speed. And with speed, you have to rethink how you do everything, right? Normally, in a vaccine comes in single doses, right? The Pfizer vaccine didn't come in a single dose. They had 5 to a bottle. And the reason they did that was that it was much faster to fill 5 to a bottle than to do it bottle by bottle. And they were fighting time because the longer they took, the more people potentially would die, right? So it changes your thinking. And that's the key part. You have to change your thinking. You have to change the entire way you operate. And that is when there is a transformation, right? Otherwise, you have the fast caterpillar. You want to get to the butterfly, right? So these are the 5 elements that are extremely important in the approach to digital transformation.
No, that's super helpful, and it does provide the framework. So then how do organizations? How do they get started? Like, what's their like? And I know that's going to change for organization to organization, but how do they really get started on this path?
So I've sort of thought about, and this is the process that we use, right? I like to start with looking at the basic processes that an organization uses, right? Because everything that drives whatever happens within the organization. And I start by looking at the processes that are directly facing off with the customer, right? Examine those, examine the ones that are most frequently used, right? Like take an account opening. So examine what's happening. How can customers start the process of opening an account from your website? If not, then maybe you need to do something with your website, right? And so on. You sort of work back from there to the back office and see, is everything that I'm doing moving at the right speed? Otherwise, you might change a couple of things, and what do you land up with? You land up with a Lamborghini trying to pull a bullock cart, right? Not going to work very well. Not going to work very well. It can only move as fast as that bullock cart is capable of, which is half a mile an hour or something like that. So, so that's the thing. You start with the processes and understand the processes, and don't try to get to all of the processes, because every organization has lots of processes, and most people have not consciously thought about how many they have. But in one example, one of our clients, we talked to them and they said, well, probably in the 50s to 70s, 80s or so. It turned out it was a lot more than that, right? But that's the way it is, right? When you get into the detail, there are a lot of things that are happening sort of on cruise control, that when you're transforming, you have to know all of those, because if you don't know it, you can't transform it, right? So you start with those processes, and then you get into analytics, right? You start looking at everything that is happening within the organization and outside the organization. Try and understand what are the significant correlations between the outcomes you desire and the factors that influence the outcomes, so that then you can attend to those specific factors and make the changes that you need, so that you are getting to the point of being more responsive to your customer requirements, right? So those are two. Now, in all of this, we're keeping the element of time. I'm not consciously mentioning time, but you are trying to go faster with everything, right? And so you are keeping time front and center in each of these elements, right? The third one that I look at is technology. Now, we are living in a fortunate time when technology is available as a service, right? You got banking as a service, you got software as a service, you've got everything that you want as a service, right? You don't have to own technology. There was a time when people used to buy mainframes, right? No one buys a mainframe anymore. You get computing power. You have Amazon that is, building up these massive compute environments, and you get that computing as a service from them, right? So you can change things. So the benefit of this is that you don't have to invest for 10 years, make a huge capital expenditure in some technology, only to see it die off in 3 or 4 years. And then what do? Buy another technology and spend all of that money and have a interesting conversation with your CFO? Definitely not. So you take a service and you pay for what you're using. And tomorrow when you see that there's a better service, you say, well, service A, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, but service B is way better now. And that's where I'm going, right? Because ultimately you need to get the best thing done for your customers. So you have the technology, which is going to now bring the process and the analytics together. And then finally, the people. And, finally, I'm not saying that that's the sequence in which you do it, but you need to focus on the people, and they need to believe. They need to have a purpose for the organization, right? So the way you talk about your organization as mission matters, and that's what you're trying to do. The organization also has to have a mission. They have to have a purpose. That mission, the organization mission, must matter to all of the people. And that is when they're going to get solidly behind everything that you're doing. And the bullock cart is going to be replaced by something that can move at the speed that the Lamborghini is going to move, right? That's when you get the butterfly instead of the fast caterpillar. That's what digital transformation is all about.
Oh man, Deepak, that is. I was taking notes while you were talking, and I'll tell you that's a great. You got a big chunk of what digital transformation looks like in a nice bite-sized episode, which we appreciate. And I'll tell you, that's a lot to unpeel and a lot to uncover on what you said. But I'll tell you, so this has been great. I probably have 50 more questions for you based off of what you said, but we're about out of time for this one. If somebody is watching this right now, Deepak, and they want to learn more about Fincuro or to connect and to follow your brand story and mission, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they could connect to me through LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Deepak Mehta, or they could email me at deepak.mehta@fincuro.com, or they could call me. I mean, I think those two means are probably the best to get hold of me, and I'd be more than happy to, understand their story and see how to help them make a difference.
Awesome. Well, Deepak, again, appreciate you coming on the show today. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. I sure did. Don't forget, if this is your first time visiting us, hit that subscribe button. We want you to be a return listener and viewer if you're watching this on our YouTube channel. And Deepak, thanks again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Adam. It has been very enjoyable. Thank you so much.